Alright, guys. Well, a little bit of a slight review here and a little bit of a slight talk here. I saw the other night Man of Steel. Went to see it on Sunday night. Was supposed to go see it on Friday night, but then someone said, "No, wait, I want to go with you." So I waited till Saturday night, and then they couldn't make it, and they forgot to leave the money so that I could go. So yeah, got delayed again until Sunday night. I finally got to see it, and I do gotta say, I loved it. Here's why. And don't even. I know already where that's gonna go. Don't even. We're getting there, okay? Um, I liked it a lot. It was by no means perfect. It was a bit rough around the edges. I'm also pretty definitely sure they had to cut quite a bit from the movie. See, that's the one thing that I really wish they'd keep in mind when they write these things is that, of course no one's going to want to see like a 3 hour movie, so don't write a 3 hour script, you know? Of course people are going to complain about length if you have it that long. But that being said, it's actually pretty darn good. Really good, actually. I love the fact that they actually went with John Byrne era Superman. He's a Superman who he's honestly the Superman who was Superman at the peak of Superman's most recent surge in popularity. He was obscenely strong, obscenely powerful, but not broken, so to speak. He wasn't taking like entire quasar explosions or starbursts to the face and then getting floored by a punch from someone who can't even handle anything near that. He was extremely strong, extremely fast. It also made the Justice League feel a bit more warranted, because Superman, while being extremely powerful, wasn't like a complete god. He wasn't already almost as fast as Flash to the point where they had to break Flash just to make him relevant. He wasn't already almost as smart as Batman to the point where they have to have Batman, pretty much do stuff that he normally can't do in order to make him relevant. That kind of thing. So, I definitely love that incarnation of Superman. I mean, he was friggin' immortal. He had a sense of mortality. He had a sense of, he was the Superman that died, for crying out loud. And before anyone says he didn't die, yeah, he did die. His heart stopped. He was dead. He came back, yes, and it took months in a chamber that pumped sunlight directly into him to even get him almost partly back to his level of strength. That's how far gone he was. Had he stayed down in that tomb for long, yeah, he would have been permanently gone. But yeah, he died. He was mortal. He came back, sure, but he had this sense of, he was something to look up to aspire to be, but he wasn't, above everyone, so to speak. He wasn't some sort of god figure, and I really loved that. I did. It was literally my favorite incarnation of Superman. It was the Superman that I read as a little kid, and I loved seeing that in this movie. Now, I do like to how, even though I wasn't too fond of the movies from the 70s with Christopher Reeves, and I got a lot of respect for Christopher Reeves and Richard Donner, and I do think that they did what they could in the era that they made the movies, but it was just something that wasn't there yet. The movies weren't too terribly enjoyable. There was a lot of cheese factor. I suppose some people could like that, and again, it is a product of its time, but I just never really found any of them too enjoyable. This was definitely more there in terms of being able to properly portray Superman. But I will say though that I think it's cool that they did have some nods to the to the old movies. They kept some stuff that was in the movies. They didn't necessarily go completely with the revamped version of the comics. They kept some stuff from the movies, like for example, while they did use John Byrne's Superman, they didn't keep everything from John Byrne's Superman. For example, Jonathan Kent does still die, so on and so forth. It's kind of interesting. And then they added their own stuff to it, which I thought was actually pretty interesting in and of itself. Now, the thing that I think really upset people about the movie, aside from some of the acting was a little stiff, I think, but nothing necessarily bad. And I do think that a lot of that too has to do with their kind of well, it's a combination of whether or not you're able to take your role seriously versus knowing that there's a lot of pressure on you to do this right, otherwise people are going to hate you. So, but, you know, there wasn't anything too bad, I don't think. People say that the relationship between Lois and Superman was rushed. Hmm. Their relationship in the comics was always pretty much based, firstly around adrenaline, and then later evolved into something deeper. Lois always had an attraction to him because of the thrill at first. So, I really have no complaints there at all. In fact, it's actually fairly fitting for right now. Now, if it doesn't really do anything to go deeper than that, yeah, then we have some right to complain. Same for character development. There wasn't too much for the side characters, but again, they're side characters. This is the start of a universe, and you know they wrote this and they made this going in knowing that there were more planned, and that's what people need to realize. Superhero movies aren't going to be made for fear that they're a closed circuit anymore. That it's just this, and there may never be a sequel. Ever since Marvel did their cinematic thing and the Avengers happened, people have been making these movies with the idea of, mapping ahead, going ahead. Now, if the second movie rolls around in these and you have that same problem, then yeah, you can complain. Definitely. Definitely. And, you can be a little disappointed, I guess, in this, but, I'm giving them till the next movie to, add some stuff to these people. Otherwise, yeah, I am not going to be too happy. But for a starting point, it was good. And finally, the big one, and this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear it, just, skip ahead a bit, I think, or close, whatever. Anyway, Superman killing Zod. This is something that seems to have everyone totally split. They are throwing a fit about this, etc. First and foremost, they use the mantra Superman does not kill. Doomsday says hi. See, that's what ticks me off. There were villains who, when they presented a great enough threat, he did indeed fight with the intention of killing them. Doomsday was one of them. When he fought Doomsday to the death, first time they met, he intended to kill him before he could kill other people. It was that plain and simple. I'm sorry, he did. And that's the same scenario here. Zod was going to kill people. He had them cornered. And I see people like, well, why didn't he just force him to move away? It's like, guys, Zod is as strong, if not stronger, frankly, than him at this point. He could try to force him to look away, but if he does, to pull this way, and Zod yanks that way and manages to, hit them, they're dead. Or, alternatively, they say, why doesn't he just take him out through the roof? Well, yeah, sure, but with the heat vision going the whole way, it would bring the roof down, and then they'd probably still be dead. No one thinks anymore. So, he did what he had to do. And it hurt him. It physically pained him to do it. He did not want to do it. Okay? He didn't want to. You could tell. He was upset that it came to that. Very upset. But, I mean, what did you realistically want him to do? Just somehow magically gain a burst of strength and then, what, shove them back all in the Phantom Zone even though they had no way of doing that now? Is that what you wanted? I mean, they kind of did, but when it came to Zod, there was no way to do it. He was already, and he made it very clear that he wasn't stopping until he was dead. And you gotta consider the context, people. It hurt him. The reaction to it hurt him to do it, even though Zod was Zod. It was not something he wanted to do. Now, speaking of Zod, I definitely, this also kind of goes back to the acting for the Kryptonians. They were the ones who arguably had some of the most emotionless acting, but I think that's kind of on purpose, because when you listen to what Fiora said, they had evolved beyond morals, beyond getting emotionally involved. Pretty much the only emotion they ever really show is anger. And I think that's fitting for them, because they were bred to be the warrior Kryptonians who, would do whatever they had to for the interests of their own people, that kind of thing. So I think that definitely is actually fitting there. I'm pretty sure that was on purpose, actually. So, there's that. But I think the ultimate interesting thing to note was the fact that, as bad as Zod is, you almost can't really fault him for being how he is. He's doing what he genuinely believes he has to do to protect Krypton, which is the sole reason he was born. The sole reason he was made was to protect his world. It's all he knows. It's the single drive he has in life. Okay, so in a way, while he's, wicked about doing it, it's because he's doing what he thinks is necessary, and that's how he was made to be. So at the same time, while he's wrong, and very wrong, his methods are wrong. You kind of fully can't fault him for thinking that way. It's how he was made to think. And it also demonstrates the great flaw with the Kryptonian system, that when you create someone whose entire focus is only on this one thing, what happens if that one thing is gone? What happens then? What happens next? And we saw what happened next. He had a complete total breakdown. And, I find that to be actually a very interesting character aspect. And finally, getting right down to what everyone seems to be talking about the most, the action. Superb. Amazing. Awesome. And yes, before anyone asks, yes, that is indeed what we would need to make a Dragon Ball movie work, and they just proved it can be done. So, yeah. Anyone saying it can't happen, now you're wrong. It can happen. That proved it can happen. So, yeah, I feel vindicated in that respect. But anyways, overall, really good movie. I'd really recommend anyone on the fence about it go see it. And I think overall I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Could have been better. But as first installments go, it was awesome. Very awesome. So, that's it for now, and I will catch you guys later in the next video I am about to do, which is going to be interesting. See ya.